Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst with Money and Markets, here with a very, very special video for our marijuana market update, folks. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this is twofold. Once you find out who I'm going to bring on today, you'll understand why. But recently, on our subscription service here on YouTube, on our membership program, I unveiled a product that took some time to build. To kind of work out all the kinks and make sure that it worked properly. And what it is basically a cannabis rating system. And the reason behind wanting to do this is because we have the Green Zone rating system on moneyandmarkets.com. It's a fantastic tool to use if you're looking for your next investment or want to look at your current investments. And my guest is going to talk way more about it than I possibly can. So, because he actually built it. So if that gives you any indication as to who it is. But what I wanted to do is instead of comparing cannabis stocks to the broader market, which is not necessarily a fair comparison, I wanted to compare cannabis stocks with each other because I think that gives a more accurate picture of the performance of a cannabis stock. So what we did is we took a couple different factors and rated every cannabis company we could find on those factors. And the two factors that we use are momentum and value. And there's sub-metrics in there too that I don't want to get too deep in the weeds about. But basically, what the system does is it looks at previous performance of these stocks, and it gives a rating of 0 to 100 on these sub-metrics related to both momentum and value. And then that leads up and gives it an overall score for momentum and value. And then that gives it a final score of 0 to 100. 100 meaning that it is a bullish stock in the sector. We expect it to perform well, all the way down to 0, which is one that you would probably want to short or definitely avoid. So that was kind of the rationale for doing it. And if you are a member on our membership community, you do get access to that. I do release that every other week or every month. You'll get the top 5 stocks that are in that rating system, and I explain kind of what that is. But and that's a kind of a glossed overview because I want to provide more time to who I'm going to bring on for our exclusive video today. He is a chief investment strategist for Money and Markets. He is the founder and editor of Green Zone Fortunes. All around great guy and one of the smartest individuals I have ever met. He is Adam O'Dell. And Adam, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this special video for the marijuana market update, taking time out. I know you're very busy, so thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Glad to be here.
So what I want to do first is you and I work together in trying to develop this rating system. And what this is, like I said, is it basically rates stocks based on their performance in the metrics of momentum and value. But it kind of spurred off of the broader Green Zone rating system that we have on Money and Market. So first, I want you to talk about the cannabis rating system that we've developed and put out to our readers, and then kind of tie that back into Green Zone Fortunes, to Green Zone rating system rather, and how that all kind of connects together.
Yeah, so the Green Zone rating system is a 6-factor model. It looks at 3 price or technical-based factors. Those would be momentum, size, and volatility, as well as 3 what you would call fundamental factors, being value, quality, and growth. So there are actually 75 individual metrics within those 6 buckets, and then we roll those 6-bucket or 6-factor scores up to give an overall score. Now, there are a number of longer-term metrics that we look at, because that's meant to be our broadest rating system. So some of these metrics look back, 2, 5, even 10 years back into the history. And so what that does is it penalizes younger companies. So a company that's just come out and started trading and putting out financials in the past 1, 2, 3 years is going to have null data points for those 5-year look back and the 10-year look backs. And so they're automatically going to be penalized on the basis that they're younger companies and they don't have a full history of the data that standard rating system looks at. The other factor that was specific to cannabis stocks, or really any type of new industry that's emerging in a frontier market type of industry, is the fact that a lot of these companies are not profitable yet. So their earnings are negative. They certainly have revenue coming in, and that's more the important metric at this stage of their growth. So they are also going to get penalized on the standard value score. If we use the standard Green Zone ratings value factor, it's going to look at a lot of the factors look at earnings. So all of the negative earnings, cannabis companies are going to get penalized for that as well. So that's really why, when you came to me, I was happy to kind of do an augmented rating system, a slimmed down version, so to speak, that is more specific to the cannabis industry. And you're really wise yourself to limit the universe to cannabis stocks so you could rate them amongst themselves. So if you're a cannabis investor, you're looking to figure out which ones within that industry group, you already believe in the mega trend that is the cannabis industry. So you don't need to necessarily compare that against other types of industries. So you were smart to do that. But basically, yeah, we're looking at momentum and value. And it sounds like an oxymoron. It sounds like a lot of people think that if something that is cheap, that it has bad momentum, or they think that if it has very positive momentum, then that means it's expensive. And that's absolutely not the case. So momentum and value can coexist. You can find things that are in an uptrend. You can find things that have better relative momentum, but that still are not priced nosebleed. And that's really the name of the game, is to find kind of, if you think about a Venn diagram, you want to find the overlap between positive momentum and attractive valuations. So specifically the valuation metrics that we look at for the cannabis rating system is price to sales and price to book. So we're not looking at earnings. We acknowledge that a lot of these companies are pre-earnings, or pre-positive earnings, pre-profitability. So we're looking at price to sales and price to book. So price to book is the classic valuation model, but we think price to sales is also very important. So basically, you can't have a situation where a stock has high momentum, but if its sales over the past quarter have grown faster than its share price, relatively speaking, you can also have it become a better value stock as well. So if the denominator, if the numerator goes faster than the denominator, that's not so good. If the denominator goes faster, then that is good. So you can certainly find stocks that are growing in price action as well, but they're growing sales at a faster rate. So that's really what we're looking for, and why we developed that specifically for the cannabis ranking system.
Yeah, the idea here was to be fair to cannabis, because if you compare a company like Canopy Growth or Tilray or Curaleaf to a Google or an Apple, then the results are going to be skewed more to the positive for Google and more to the negative for the cannabis companies, for the reasons that Adam says, because these companies have not been around. They don't have the data that reach back nearly as long as a Google or an Apple. And when you're looking at other things like price to earnings, for example, cannabis companies, we all know they have struggled and they continue to struggle, even though there are signs that these companies are getting better. So we wanted to kind of make sure that we were looking at a really honest representation of cannabis, not just kind of a fly by night, let's just plug it in and whatever happens, but let's get a very honest and accurate representation, both for momentum, which is something that Adam and I and Charles Sizemore and our entire team believe very strongly in, and that is the principle of buying high and selling higher. So momentum obviously has to be important in anything that we do. So the next question was, okay, what is that next factor? And you could look at other technical or other fundamentals, but they just didn't make sense for cannabis right now, because cannabis, again, it is an illegal industry in the United States. It is a scheduled substance. So it does not have the full weight and breadth of U.S. bank support, of full investor support. We don't have that yet. When that happens, after a certain time, then I think you're going to see cannabis stocks start to reach that level of a Google or an Apple or an Amazon that we see on the broader green zone rating system. But until that happens, we've got to be fair, and we have to understand what the market is. So Adam's absolutely right. Looking at price to earnings for cannabis companies is kind of a no-go, just because if you look at it, let's say there's 200, and I think that my last index run, there's 225 companies trade on the major U.S. exchanges and over the counter to be ranked in the index. And of those, I would probably say 5% possibly have positive earnings. And a big reason for that is because they're also diversified in other areas and aren't just cannabis centric. So, they're earning profits, but they're earning profits. Like if you look at a Perkin-Elmer does testing for cannabis, and they are kind of considered a cannabis stock, but they are much more diverse than that. They do testing for COVID. They just recently bought an antibody library from BioLegend. They are much broader than just cannabis. Turning Point Brands, Grow Generation, all these companies, they are much more broad than just growing and selling cannabis. So that's why it's important to kind of make everything as equal as possible and make everything as fair as possible. And Adam, I really appreciate the work that you did on this. And if you want to know more about the green zone rating system, if you're looking for maybe to broaden outside of cannabis and you're wanting to look at what's the next tech stock I want to buy, or what's the next, one thing you want to do is you want to look at the green zone rating system, and that is available to anyone to use on our website, moneyandmarkets.com. If you go to moneyandmarkets.com, you're going to see a search bar up on the top right, and you can enter a symbol or a company name, whatever, and it could be over the counter. It could trade on the NASDAQ, the stock exchange. You type in that ticker and you'll immediately be able to pull up and find out what its ranking is. And it gives an explainer as to the fundamental factors, the technical factors, what each one of those factors means, how the company scores in each. There's a stock chart involved. You can see the fundamental financial details of the company, plus any content that we may have written about, so that you can get even more research on a potential investment. And it's a fantastic tool to have at your disposal. And again, it's absolutely free to use. And I would encourage anyone, whether you're looking at cannabis or the broader market, to do so. And it's a good starting point to get started to see what the next addition to your portfolio is. Adam, I appreciate it. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add related to green zone or cannabis rankings at all. He's shaking his head. That's a no. Well, I appreciate
you covered it. So thanks for having me today. I do appreciate getting to weigh in on it.
Absolutely. And I do encourage, if you want to learn more from Adam O'Dell, we do have a weekly YouTube video series called Ask Adam Anything. I get to sit down with Adam and ask him just that, anything. It could be about life in general. It could be about the intricacies of intrinsic value. It could be about the picture on his wall, which, by the way, don't ask, because we've actually kind of covered that before. It's based in Puerto Rico, just for anyone who doesn't know. The picture on the back of his wall is an image from Puerto Rico. So that should clarify that right there. But if you do have any comments or questions or suggestions or anything you'd like us to address, either in Ask Adam Anything or in the Marijuana Market Update, please email us, feedback@moneyandmarkets.com, and we are more than happy to read your feedback and answer your questions as quickly and as accurately as possible, because that's what we do. We're here to provide you safe, sound, smart, simple, profitable investment information for your portfolio. So for Adam O'Dell, Chief Investment Strategist for Green Zone for Money Markets, as well as the founder and editor of Green Zone Fortunes, I am Research Analyst Matt Clark, wishing everyone safe trading.